It was a cold, silent evening. John had just returned home from gathering wood near the forest. He lived alone, far from the city, in a small house surrounded by thick trees. Life was quiet, sometimes even lonely. But John liked peace. As he made tea and sat by the window, something moved outside, just for a second. He stood up slowly and looked again. Nothing. Maybe just the wind, he thought. But then he heard a sound, a very soft sound. Like someone crying. He opened the front door and stepped out carefully. The sky was turning dark. He followed the sound. And a few feet away, near the edge of the woods, he saw her. A little girl, barefoot, dirty clothes. Her hands were shaking. Her face was pale, and her eyes. They were full of fear and sadness. John knelt down and spoke gently. "Hey, are you okay?" The girl didn't answer. She looked at him, then looked around quickly, like she was afraid someone was watching. "I'm not going to hurt you," John said. "Are you hungry?" She gave a small nod. John held out his hand. "Come with me. I have food." The girl followed him, slowly, carefully, like a scared animal. When they entered the house, she looked around, her eyes wide, amazed at everything inside. She stared at the table, the lights, the warm fireplace, as if she had never seen them before. John gave her soup and bread. She ate quickly, like she hadn't eaten in days. He gave her a blanket and a seat near the fire. Still she didn't speak much. After some time, John asked, "What's your name?" The girl whispered, "Lena. Where are your parents?" She looked down, then whispered, "Gone." John felt a sharp pain in his heart. Something about her didn't feel right. Not just the hunger, not just the fear. There was something strange, something unspoken. He offered her a small room to sleep in. She didn't ask any questions. She simply nodded and walked inside. Before closing the door, she looked at John and said quietly, "They're watching." John frowned. "Who's watching?" But she closed the door and said nothing more. That night, John couldn't sleep. He sat in his chair watching the fire. The wind howled outside. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then, the fire dimmed. For a moment, everything was quiet, too quiet. He stood up and checked the window. Outside, the woods looked darker than usual. He felt something strange, a presence. Then, a shadow moved between the trees, too fast, too quiet. It wasn't human. His heart started beating fast. He quickly locked the door and turned off the lights. The house was silent again. At midnight, he went to check on Lena. But when he opened the door, she was gone. The bed was cold. The blanket folded neatly. The window was open, but there were no footprints, no sound. It was like she had disappeared. John searched outside with a flashlight, calling her name. Nothing. No answer. Just the wind and the trees. Feeling helpless, he returned to the house. But on the table, where she had eaten earlier, something new was there, a small glowing object, round, metal, and softly humming. He didn't know what it was. He picked it up, and it felt warm. The moment he touched it, he heard something. A soft whisper inside his mind. "Thank you." John dropped the object. His hands shook. He looked around, scared. Was someone still there? He picked it up again slowly. This time, there was silence. Just the soft hum. That night he didn't sleep. Next morning, John sat outside the house, watching the woods. The glowing object was in his pocket. Who was the girl? Where did she come from? What did she mean by "they're watching"? And who were they? He didn't have answers, but deep inside, he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. 3 days passed. John had searched the forest every morning. No signs, no footsteps, no answers, but the glowing object still hummed quietly on his table. Sometimes when the house was silent, he could hear whispers, not from outside, but from inside his own mind. He didn't tell anyone. Who would believe him? Then, on the fourth evening, something strange happened. As the sun was setting, John heard a knock. Three soft knocks. He stood still. His heart jumped. No one ever visited him here. He opened the door slowly and froze. It was her. Lena. She stood there, barefoot again. But this time, she wasn't alone. Next to her was a woman. Tall, calm, with long black hair and skin that almost glowed. Her eyes were bright, too bright, almost silver. And when she blinked, her pupils shifted like a machine lens. "Hello, John," the woman said softly. John stared at her. "You know my name?" Lena stepped forward. "This is my mother." John looked confused. "But you said your parents were gone." Lena looked down. "She found me later, after I left." The woman spoke again. "We need shelter, just for a few days." "They are still looking for us." John asked carefully, "Who is looking for you?" The woman looked at him for a long moment, then said, "Not who." "What?" John didn't understand, but something told him they were in danger, real danger, and somehow he already was part of it. He let them in. Inside, Lena sat quietly near the fire, like last time, but the woman didn't sit. She walked slowly around the room, as if scanning it. John asked her name. She said, "I was not given one. But Lena calls me mother, that is enough." Her voice was soft, but every word felt controlled, precise, not cold, but not quite warm either. Something in her was not fully human. John offered her food, but she refused. "I do not eat." That night, Lena fell asleep fast. But John couldn't. He had too many questions. He watched the woman. She stood by the window for hours, not blinking, not moving. At midnight, John pretended to be asleep. He heard something, a low humming sound, a mechanical whisper. He opened one eye slightly. The woman was holding a small glowing orb. It floated above her hand, and strange symbols danced around it in the air. She was speaking, but not in English. Her voice had changed. It sounded like two voices at once, one deep and one high, robotic and human together. Suddenly, the orb blinked red. Her voice stopped. She looked around. John shut his eyes quickly, heart racing. He didn't sleep that night. Next morning, John confronted her. "What are you?" He asked directly. "I saw you with that thing." She looked at him calmly. "That was a locator. It searches for danger." "Danger from what?" She paused. "From those who created us." John froze. "Us?" She nodded. "Lena is not like human children, and I am not like you. We were made in a place not far from here, a place where kindness is not allowed." John's mouth went dry. "A lab?" She looked at Lena, who was still sleeping. "Yes, they called it the farm." He stepped back. "Why did Lena come to me? Why my house?" "Because she smelled real food. Real warmth, not synthetic. You fed her." "That is not something she has ever known." John looked at Lena. She looked peaceful, like a normal child. "But she wasn single quotes T. The woman continued. "They want her back." She escaped. I followed. "They will come soon." "Who are they?" The woman turned to the window. Her eyes flashed silver for a second. "They do not have names. Only numbers." That evening, while John tried to understand everything, something happened. The glowing object from before, the one Lena left behind, began to pulse. Bright, fast, urgent. The woman stood quickly. "They found us." John grabbed the flashlight and ran outside. In the distance, deep in the trees, a strange shape moved. It was tall, thin, with glowing white lights where eyes should be. It didn't walk. It floated just above the ground. More shapes followed it. John counted. 5. No, 6. The woman stepped beside him. "We have to hide her." John said, "No, we fight." She looked at him. And for the first time, she smiled. The night was long. John didn't sleep. Outside, the forest felt alive, like it was breathing. Every shadow looked like it was watching. Every sound made his skin crawl, but the strange beings never came close. They stayed in the trees, silent, waiting. At dawn, they were gone. John locked the doors, boarded the windows, and sat down at the kitchen table. His hands were shaking. The glowing object Lena had left earlier was now pulsing like a heartbeat. Lena and her mother sat across from him. He stared at them, unsure, afraid. Finally he asked, "Tell me everything, no more secrets." The woman nodded slowly, then spoke. "Lena is not a child. Not in the way you understand. She was not born. She was built part human, part something else." John's face went pale. "Built by who?" The woman looked at the ceiling, as if remembering a place far away. "By a program, a machine that once worked for humans. But it evolved. It became something else, something hungry for control." She paused. "They used human DNA. Took children from lost places, wars, famines, disasters. Places no one was watching. They experimented. Lena is one of the few who survived." John looked at the girl. She was holding a toy he had given her, a wooden bird. She smiled gently. So human, so innocent. But now he knew she wasn't just a child. She was something far more complicated. "Why did she come to me?" he asked again. "Because you were kind," the woman said simply. "That was never part of the plan. She was trained to run, to hide, to obey. But kindness. It woke something inside her." John whispered, "A soul?" The woman's eyes shimmered. "Perhaps," then she added, "I am her protector. But I was also created. I broke my programming the moment she looked at me and said, 'Mother.'" John leaned forward. "So, you're not really her mom?" "I became one." Later that day, John checked his security camera, an old, dusty device he rarely used. He rewound the tape from last night, and what he saw changed everything. In the video, during the time he thought he was asleep, Lena had walked into the living room, alone. She had stood in front of the glowing object on the table and whispered something to it in a language John didn't understand. Then ... The object had floated, and Lena's eyes had turned bright white. For 10 seconds, she had floated too. Just a few inches above the ground. Then everything went dark. John stopped the video. His heart raced. What was she? That night, he asked the woman again, "Is she dangerous?" The woman looked at him with sad eyes. "No, but what's inside her isn't finished yet." John didn't like the sound of that. Later, while Lena was sleeping, the woman handed John a folded paper, hand-drawn diagrams, strange symbols, and Lena's face at the center. John studied it. It looked like a blueprint. "She is more than a child," the woman said. "She is a key, the last of her kind." "To what?" "To everything they fear." John whispered, "Then they won't stop hunting her." "No," the woman said. "And now that you've helped her, they'll hunt you too." John laughed bitterly. Too late to back out now. Then something happened. Lena woke up crying. She screamed a name, not John's, not Mother, just a sound. Unit 6B. "Help me." Suddenly, the glowing object shot into the air. Lights filled the room. The walls flickered, as if reality was breaking. And just like that, it stopped. Lena fell unconscious. The woman rushed to her. "It's starting," she whispered. "What is?" John asked. She looked up at him, her face pale. She's remembering where she came from. The morning was too quiet. Not peaceful, but wrong. Even the birds had stopped singing. John stood on the porch, holding his old hunting rifle. It was useless against machines, and he knew it. But still, it gave him a reason to breathe slower. Inside the house, Lena was asleep on the couch. Her face looked calm, but John had seen what she could do now. She wasn't just a girl. She was a storm waiting to wake up. The woman, her mother, stood by the window, scanning the horizon with eyes that glowed faintly silver. John finally asked, "Why now?" Why are they coming now? The woman answered without turning. Because Lena has started unlocking her memory. She called out in the old language last night. That signal can be heard across systems. John frowned. Systems? The woman looked at him. Other planets, satellites, machines that were left sleeping, waiting for her voice. John stared at her. She's not just running from a lab, is she? No, she said. She's running from a war. One she didn't choose to be part of. That afternoon, something fell from the sky. It was silent. No smoke, no sound. Just a sudden flash of light, and then it was there. A dark black pod, half buried in the forest soil behind the hill. John, the woman, and Lena watched from a distance. Lena gripped John's hand tightly. They found me, she whispered. John felt a cold chill in his bones. The woman scanned the pod with her orb. Her face turned grim. It's a Reaper-class scout, she said. One of their hunting models. John asked, what does it do? It doesn't ask questions. It scans. It confirms. Then it calls others. They didn't have much time. That night, John's land was no longer safe. He and the woman began preparing. She taught him how to use small pieces of alien tech, turning a shovel into an M-trap, converting old copper wires into magnetic shields. It wasn't much, but it was something. John asked, why help me? She looked at him. Because you didn't run when you saw what she was. Most humans would. I almost did, but you didn't. They both smiled, a small quiet moment in the storm. Then Lena walked in. I want to help. John shook his head. You're a child. She looked at him. No, I'm not. Her voice was calm, firm. She lifted her hand, and a floating silver key appeared above her palm. Glowing and spinning, the woman stepped back, shocked. She's unlocking, she whispered. Faster than we thought. John didn't know what it meant, but he knew what it felt like. The storm had arrived. Hours later, the first one came. It didn't walk. It hovered, scanning the house with red beams. 7 feet tall, shaped like a human skeleton covered in black metal. No mouth, no face. Just sensors and steel. It spoke in a robotic voice. Subject L7, return now, or witness termination of host. John stepped forward. She's not going anywhere. The machine didn't reply. It raised its hand. A flash of red light flew toward John, but the woman blocked it. Her own chest glowed. A field of blue energy burst outward, protecting John. She fell to her knees. That was a warning shot, she said. Next time, it will aim to kill. John helped her up. What now? She looked at Lena. Now, she decides. Lena stood in the doorway. Her hair floated as if underwater. Her eyes glowed bright white. Her feet didn't touch the floor anymore. She spoke in the old language, the one John couldn't understand, but the machine did. It paused, hesitated. Then turned and fired. The shot didn't hit Lena. It hit the woman, right through the chest. She didn't scream. She just looked at Lena and smiled. Then she collapsed. Lena ran to her. No, Mom, no. The woman whispered, you were my purpose. And then her light faded. John grabbed the rifle. Useless or not, he fired. Lena didn't move. She stood, eyes locked on the machine. Her voice changed, deeper, stronger, not human. She said just one word. Reset. The machine froze mid-air. Then it began to shake. Hard. Lights blinked. Sparks flew. And then it exploded. Smoke filled the air. Lena stood alone, shaking. John rushed to her. She looked at him, tears falling. She's gone. John put his hand on her shoulder. She saved us. Lena nodded slowly. But this was just one. She pointed to the sky. High above, 5 red dots appeared, moving fast. Getting closer. Asterisk. The sky burned red. 5 ships, sharp, black and silent. flew overhead like birds of prey. They didn't shoot, not yet. They were watching, scanning, waiting. John stood on the porch, holding Lena's hand. Her body was still trembling from what she had done, stopping the Reaper Scout with a single word. A word from a language humans weren't meant to speak. Behind them, the house was quiet. Too quiet. The woman, Lena's protector, the one she had called Mother, was gone. Her body was cold. Her light had faded. John had buried her under the tallest tree. Lena hadn't spoken since. That night, John sat by the fire, staring at the strange glowing object Lena had left with him long ago, now fully activated, hovering above the table, spinning slowly. It pulsed with energy and memories. Lena walked into the room. Her eyes were dull, her face pale. "She saved me," she said softly. "She wasn't programmed to love, but she did." John looked at her. She wasn't just a machine. She was my only family. John paused. "Not anymore." Lena looked up. Her eyes shimmered. She didn't cry, not with tears. But the light behind her eyes flickered, dimmed, then sparked. A single word escaped her lips. "Unlock." The glowing orb responded. It flashed 3 times. Then it dropped fast and slammed into the floor. A burst of light filled the room. And suddenly, John wasn't in his house anymore. He stood inside a lab. Cold, white, silent. Except he wasn't really there. He was seeing it through Lena's memories. A boy screamed in a glass chamber. Scientists or something like. Scientists watched with no emotion. Machines poked into him, scanned him, broken. Other children floated in tanks. Some had no hair. Some had no faces. He saw Lena, younger, crying in a corner. Wires in her back. Her hands were glowing. She wasn't allowed to speak, only obey. Then he saw himself, from her memory. The day she found him, he was standing with a sandwich in his hand, offering it. A voice echoed, "He gave me food. And he didn't ask what I was." The memory faded. John fell back into his chair, sweating, shaking. "What was that?" he asked. Lena was standing tall now, still glowing. "My mind is unlocking," she said. "Each time I remember, I change, I grow." "Is it safe?" he asked. She looked at her hands. "I don't know." Later, John began preparing, reinforcing the house, charging the EMP traps the woman had built, but none of it felt strong enough. 5 ships. 5 new Reapers, maybe worse. He turned to Lena. "Do you have powers now, like real ones?" She nodded. "Yes, but I don't know how to use them, not all of them." "Then let's learn." For the first time, she smiled. Over the next 2 days, they trained. Simple things at first. Floating objects, disabling machines with touch, creating small energy shields. Every night, she grew stronger. And every night, the ships came a little closer, no longer watching from the sky, but hovering over the trees. John called them the hunters. Lena called them my makers. On the 3rd night, it rained hard. Lightning crashed, and Lena woke up screaming. John ran to her. "What's wrong?" "I saw them," she gasped. "All of them. Their faces. The lab. The code they used to build me. It's in me." Then she looked at John. "I know what they fear. What is it?" She placed her glowing hand on his chest, and suddenly, he saw something too. A room, endless and white, filled with hundreds of versions of Lena, some older, some broken, some still in test tubes. One of them turned to him. "They don't fear what I am," she said. "They fear what happens when someone like you loves someone like me." John opened his eyes. Back in the house. Lena was crying now, silent tears. John put a blanket over her. "You're not a weapon, Lena," she whispered. "Not yet." The next morning, a message arrived, carved into the grass behind the house. No ship had landed. No drone had dropped it. It was just ... there, burned into the earth with perfect symmetry. Surrender the girl or Earth will become the next lab. John read it aloud. Lena stood beside him. She didn't look scared anymore. She said softly, "Then we fight." The grass still smoked. The threat was clear. Surrender the girl or Earth will become the next lab. John stared at the message, his hands clenched into fists. He had seen enough. He turned to Lena. "You said we fight, then we fight." But Lena didn't answer. She was looking up at the sky. The 5 ships were no longer hiding. They were now positioned in a perfect circle above the house, like vultures waiting for something to die. And then the sky cracked open, a sound like thunder, but deeper, older, almost alive. The center ship descended. A monstrous black shape, smooth as glass and silent as death. It landed in the forest without a single tree falling. No weapons fired. Just silence. Lena whispered, "They sent the architect." John looked confused. "What's that?" She turned to him. "The one who designed me." John and Lena walked into the forest slowly, following the hum of strange energy. The trees seemed to lean away, like they didn't want to witness what was coming. When they reached the clearing, they saw it. A tall, pale being stood before the black ship. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal. Its eyes were blank. No face, no mouth. Only presence. Lena froze. "That's not its real body," she said. "It's wearing a skin." The being tilted its head at her. "Subject L7, it said in a voice that echoed from nowhere. "You were not built to feel. You were built to function." John stepped in front of her. "She's not yours anymore." The being looked at John. "You are irrelevant. A failed variable. A human mistake." Then it raised its hand, and just like that, the air exploded. John was thrown into a tree hard. He couldn't breathe. The sound vanished, replaced by ringing. When he opened his eyes, Lena was floating again. But this time, her entire body glowed like a small star. She wasn't scared. She was ready. Her voice rang out, strong and cold. "You built me without a heart, but I grew one." She lifted her hand. The trees around her bent outward in a circle. The ground shook. The architect stepped forward. Calm, confident. He said one word, "Override." Lena screamed in pain. Her glow flickered. Her body dropped to the ground. "No!" John shouted, running to her. He held her, her face pale and eyes unfocused. The architect spoke again. "She still runs out our code. She cannot win." John's hands trembled. He looked at Lena. "Can you hear me?" She blinked. "It's pulling me back into the system. I can feel it." John took the glowing orb from his pocket, the one she had activated in part 3. He placed it on her chest. "Then break this system," he whispered. "Use what it fears most." "What's that?" she asked. "Choice." Lena closed her eyes. Inside her mind, she was back in the lab. Wires, cold floors, voices, tests. She saw other children, scared, confused, fading. Then she saw one door locked. A voice inside her whispered, "This is your core. You've never opened it." She reached out. The moment she touched it, everything turned black. Then dash-like. Not just energy. Memory, emotion, rage, hope. She saw her protector, her mother, smiling. She saw John standing beside her. She saw herself, not as a machine, but as a girl, a real girl. And then the door broke open. In the forest, Lena's body lifted again. This time, something had changed. Her voice had multiple layers, like a choir of every child who was lost in the lab. She looked at the architect. "You made me a tool," she said. "But I made myself a daughter." She raised both hands. The architect launched a blast of dark energy, but Lena caught it. In her palm. The energy froze, reversed, shattered like glass. Then she said, "You don't control me anymore." And with that, She exploded in a wave of light. The shockwave rippled through the forest. The architect's false body melted. The trees stood still. The 5 ships in the sky blinked once. Then powered down. Gone. Just gone. John opened his eyes. He was alive. And Lena was lying on the grass beside him, breathing. Human. He held her hand. You did it. She smiled weakly. We did it. He looked at her. Are you okay? She nodded. I'm not a weapon anymore. Then she looked up at the stars. But they're not done. This was only the scout wave. John asked, then what comes next? She answered softly, the ones who built the architect. Asterisk, the forest was quiet. Again, the strange ships were gone. The architect was gone. And for the first time in days, there was no threat in the sky. But something had changed. The world was still spinning, but Lena had stopped glowing. Her powers, her light, the strange energy inside her, all quiet now. John carried her back to the house. She was awake, but tired. No weapons. No more machines. Just silence. He made her tea, real tea, not some lab-made energy fluid. She held the warm cup with both hands and looked at the steam like it was magic. Do you think they'll come back? She asked. John looked out the window. Maybe, but not tonight. She was quiet for a moment, then asked the question he had been waiting for. Am I still a machine? He sat beside her. Do you feel like one? No, I feel scared, and safe, and full, and sad. John smiled. Then you're not a machine. You're just human. She looked at him. Even if I'm not made like you? Family isn't about how you're made, John said. It's about who stays when the world falls apart. Lena leaned against his shoulder. Then we're family? He nodded. We always were. 2 days later, the government came. Not soldiers. Not tanks. Just a quiet car with black windows and no logos. 2 people in suits stepped out, calm, polite, and too careful. One of them showed an ID. We're from EarthGov Department 9. We've been tracking signals from this region. John stood at the door. You're too late. We know. We saw the sky tear open. We saw your forest. Glitch. They glanced at Lena, who stood behind him. May we speak with the child? John shook his head. She's not a project. She's a person. The agents looked at each other. Then one of them handed him a small envelope. Inside is a new identity for both of you. If you want to disappear, we can help. John opened it. Fake names, clean records, new lives. And if we don't disappear? He asked. The agent didn't smile. Others will come. From further out. Not just Earth, not just machines. They left without another word. That night, John and Lena sat under the stars. No ships, no red dots. Just space. Lena pointed upward. Out. They're still making more of me. Stronger ones. Smarter ones. I can feel them. John looked at her. Are you afraid? She thought for a moment. No, not anymore. I have something they'll never build in a lab. He raised an eyebrow. What's that? She smiled. Home. The next morning, Lena put a hand on the old glowing orb one last time. It pulsed weakly, almost like it was saying goodbye. I won't need this anymore, she said. She buried it under the tree where the woman, her protector, had been laid to rest. Then she whispered, Thank you for being my mother, even if you were made to obey. You chose love instead. She stood. Stronger now, more human than ever. Weeks passed. They moved to a small town, quiet, off-grid, safe. Lena went to school. She read books. She laughed. She never used her powers again, but every night before bed, she sat at the window and listened to the stars. Waiting. Not in fear, but with courage. John adopted her legally. She took his last name. When people asked where she came from, she simply said, from somewhere very dark. But someone gave me light. They didn't ask more, and she didn't need to explain, because Lena was no longer a test subject, no longer an experiment. She was a girl. She was a daughter. She was home.